The maps. We brought maps to the second meeting, and you brought Ward 13 maps to the third meeting, and there was some misinformation on there. I think we all agree that maybe they were put together very quickly and we didn't quite analyze them. I just want to confirm that staff will work with Councillor Nunziata and myself to make sure that we get those maps corrected. I, for instance, have faith groups who do have food banks, who do have clothing drives, who do have services which could help people if they are moving into a shelter in our neighbourhood. So I just want to hear from staff that you'll be working with the local councillors to correct that information.
Through the chair, absolutely. In fact, we like to think of these meetings as the beginning of a discussion with the local community, and we often find the local community knows much more about where the facilities are than we do. And if you go to any one of our other shelter locations that have been situated there for a while, they have established relationships with the community agencies. They're very aware of the local service. And one of the things we do is when we set up a shelter is we actually set up a community liaison committee. So there's an ongoing relationship. And we also have a liaison worker that would actually provide that kind of information.
You've just led into my very last, very quick question while the chair's looking at something else. When would this community liaison committee be set up? So if, for instance, the shelter is proposed to be open in the spring of 2017, when will that community group actually get going, which will have residents on that committee?
So normally we would set it up once the council has approved the proceeding with the site. However, we're open to setting it up at any moment. We could set it up tomorrow if it was helpful, if we could have that dialogue even before council makes a decision.
My questions are with respect to the shelter size. Frankly, I do think 100 people in one place, 4 per room, seems a bit intense to me. What does the literature and best practices say out there as to the appropriate size of shelter?
I don't think there is a clear answer to that. It's a combination of the size of facility you need to justify the facilities or the services it would put in. For example, a kitchen. It depends on the client group. Whether it's youth versus women with children versus single men. We've indicated 100 for this shelter, but I think as we build the shelter model, maybe it's 80, maybe it's 95, I think we'd have to refine it as we go through, but it's one of the things we have to do when we bring these proposals forward is to identify a number. But the other thing I would note is that this would be a place of service. So it may also act as a place where other people come to, for example, to access some housing help services that might be in that building. So we have to move towards looking at some service metrics instead of just counting beds. In fact, the hostel allocations report that is also on the agenda today is moving towards a bulk funding model, which is we're trying to measure, so how many people are you helping, for example, into housing as opposed to how many people slept in the beds last night.
Would it be fair to say then that 100 would be a maximum number and it might be driven down by other services that are identified as you figure out the appropriate model for this location and this neighborhood?
Yes, I would think that's fair.
And I'm wondering, is 4 per room exclusively the best service model, or should we be saying, okay, there'll be X number of 4s, there'll be X number of 2s, and there'll be some that are 1s? Is that kind of complexity part of your analysis as well that you'll be doing?
Certainly it is. It depends on the building in terms of what we're able to do, but yes, we can look at that. Certainly 4 is much better than 10 or 12, which you may see in other larger shelters. But we're open as we refine the model. And often in our shelters we have a combination of sometimes we have, depending on where the client is in their transition to housing, they may actually be in a room by themselves or just with somebody else. So I think we can refine that as we look at the model.
First of all, this whole process for selecting and proposing the shelter, in my opinion, has been flawed. There was inadequate consultation, misinformation to the public, and the staff did not listen to my community and on any modifications that came from in comments from my community through the community consultation meetings. I'm frustrated that I heard staff say today that the maps were correct, the maps were incorrect, and it was pointed out in June that the map was incorrect, and to this day, I have not received the correction. So you have not even corrected the mistakes that you made at the community meeting, which is frustrating to me and frustrating to my community. But what really surprises me, and Councillor Doucette talks about putting lighting under that bridge, all these improvements we're going to get, and TTC is going to make all these improvements. Why did we have to wait for a request for a shelter in my ward before we're willing to spend money and bring these improvements? That should have never happened. We shouldn't wait for shelter sites to be built and then say to the community, we're going to do all this for you. It should have been done before. Like, this is really a bad way, you know, to do this. We should be working with the community, not against the community, and we should be listening to the community when they make these comments and concerns they have at meetings, and rather than just not take the recommendations or comments seriously, as we dismiss them. And for the summer, what I want to do by having this come back in September is that I want to work with my community and Councillor Doucette, the two of us, to work on bringing something forward, listening to the community, listening to what their needs are, listen to what their concerns are. And I met with the mayor and the community on Monday, and the mayor is absolutely 100% behind this. And listening to them and looking at what would be a good fit out in Runnymede, what sort of services you need. 100 beds is too much. What would be an appropriate size for that location? What sort of services can we expand in that area? What services do we need?